Hi, this is Nicholas Bell with IONCINEMA, here to review The Vigil, the directorial debut of Keith Thomas, which premiered at the 2019 Toronto International Film Festival and is now scheduled for release February 26, 2021, courtesy of IFC Midnight. Technically, this is a faith-based genre, psychological horror film, but does a lot with very little. It's about a man named Yaakov, played by Dave Davis. We meet him in kind of a Jewish community center where it's kind of unclear what the group is gathered to speak about. It seems that based on their behaviors, they all might have survived some kind of trauma. It also seems as if several members at least are being acclimated to the world around them after leaving behind the Hasidic community in general. Come to find, Yaakov went through a serious trauma involving his younger brother who was killed, which it's not exactly explained, but seems to be the reason that he is leaving behind this particular Hasidic community in Borough Park, Brooklyn. It's clear that he's kind of fragile. He's having trouble financially supporting himself. He leaves this meeting. We see a mysterious figure standing outside, a lurker on the threshold, if you will, played by Menasche Lustig, who is there to offer Yaakov specifically the role of a shomer, which the film opens explaining what this is, and that's the male version of this word. When someone dies, usually it's a loved one or a relative, but if there's not someone there, they hire someone to play a shomer, who's basically a watchman or a guardian who stays up all night watching the body to make sure that no evil spirits take hold. It's made clear that someone else had already been hired for the position but has left, and it's even more creepy when Yaakov gets inside and the widow, played by Lynn Cohen, who is also maybe suffering from dementia, immediately tells him to leave. He won't work. He of course stays because he's going to get paid $400 for 5 hours of work. She goes upstairs and almost immediately weird things start happening. The DP, Zach Cooperstein, who also lends The Eyes of My Mother, one of my favorite films from 2016, does a lot of first-rate work with camera and shadows, and it's with light and shadows, and it's really where The Vigil seems to work best, is these things going on just outside of the periphery in the dark, shadows moving, changing shape, that really work. Of course, we are fed more details about a demon named Mazik, which is the Yiddish word for rascal or imp, that seems to have followed the dead man from his days in the Holocaust, where he also had potentially been involved with something that caused him a lot of guilt and then therefore made him vulnerable, etc. As I said, lots of great camera work, great score by Michael Yuzerski, who recently also scored The Tax Collector and Blind Spotting. So really great ambient tone and mood. However, this will also feel to some very familiar. If you never encountered the Hasidic community on film, this might also seem more novel than it really is. Certainly, of course, more than lavish Hollywood narratives such as A Stranger Among Us or Fading Gigolo or even Disobedience with the two Rachels. This is much more an intimate glance at a community that might seem difficult to comprehend if you never have before. However, Jewish mysticism, I believe, is still kind of a rather untapped resource in cinema, and I think that The Vigil is a great example of its possibilities. Like, there's a recent restoration of the 1937 film The Dybbuk, which is classic Yiddish cinema that I think is definitely worth a look. The Dybbuk, or a Jewish demon, tends to make its way into Hollywood genre filmmaking and very silly venues such as The Unborn with Gary Oldman, or The Possession, directed by Ollie Bornadal with Kira Sedgwick. So if you are familiar with those or not familiar with them, I think The Vigil is kind of an excellent directorial debut that does a lot with very little. Besides Lynn Cohen, who passed away February of 2020, this is one of several films that she made before her passing that's still being released, like the recent Lingua Franca. Fred Melamed does some his very recognizable voice has a nice little moment with some voice work here. And Dave Davis is quite exceptional, I think, in a very sympathetic lead performance, because basically the whole film is on his shoulders, and I think he does a fine job. Overall, I would give The Vigil 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.